Welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast with your host and content creator, Johnny FIORICA, who couldn't afford to buy his condo in Del Boca Vista without his buddies co-signing for the mortgage. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast. Your host, content creator, Johnny FIORICA, 30-year veteran, Rochester, New York Police Department. I retired about 6 months ago. After a 30-year career, sitting alongside me tonight, and only tonight, David SIMPSON. He's a 20-plus year veteran, SWAT cop, street cop, retired out of the murder unit as a detective. David, welcome to the pod.
Happy to be here. Special podcast.
Yeah, we had to do a podcast today. Full disclosure, Jason Blanchard, our third guy on the pod. Like we talk about, we play this game honestly. Jay is an active member of law enforcement, so he decided to bow out like a gentleman, and we all agreed on it. David and I and our producer, Danny Agnew. Jay's going to take a sideline on this because we have to discuss. We could not go without addressing what is going on in Rochester, New York, and Monroe County right now. Our district attorney, Sandra Doorley, failed to stop when Officer Chris Ofuli from the Webster, New York Police Department tried to pull her over on Phillips Road. She refused to pull over, ends up driving directly to her house, parks her vehicle, her truck, in the garage, which is a no-no. You are supposed to comply with an officer when he has the lights on, and she didn't. He says in the video, it's all over YouTube right now, he says in the video, and he was so respectful, he says, you were doing 55 and a 35, you were doing 20 over.
You just admitted to me that you were going 55 and a 35 on Phillips Road.
Can you please tell him to leave me alone? It's
Officer Chris Ofuli. Can you stay over here, ma'am? This is a traffic. This is a legal traffic stop. Do you have your ID?
No, it's in my purse.
David, what is going on?
We always say we got to call it like we see it. Not a good day for the DA. I actually feel really bad for the Webster cop, who clearly, in my opinion, didn't even know who she was, who he was dealing with. And he was just trying to do his job, and he actually did a really good job. He had a lot of patience for the situation. She ignored all of his verbal commands. Initially with the traffic stop, she ignored that. And then when he was trying to get her to, basically sit still, come out and talk to me, she was walking away from him. And at one point she goes in the house. So it was a very difficult situation for this kid. He's, I say kid, he's a young, seems to be a younger officer. And there's nothing anyone can say that would put the DA, Sandra Doorley, doing the right thing here. She was completely wrong from the start to the end. And, it was a bad day for her.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. And I tell you, yeah, I don't know the officer, but I'll tell you what, I don't know of an officer, past, present, or possibly in the future, that could have handled an incident like this better than the officer did. Well-trained guys out in the Webster PD. Chief over there should be definitely happy that he's got this young guy on the force. He was so gentlemanly. She pulls into the garage, gets out of the car. First of all, she doesn't pull over, pulls in the garage, gets out of the car, doesn't. All the no-nos of a traffic stop, right? We talk about the dangers of law enforcement. Literally, one of the most dangerous things a cop can do is conducting a T-stop or a traffic stop. We don't know what's in the car. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right. He wouldn't even have been wrong at that point. He approached the garage to have her at gunpoint. I mean, at that point, there's been plenty of times in the city we've had cars pulling the driveways and stuff like that, and you come up on right away, your gun's out. Like, what do I got here?
Right.
Like,
right.
And he was, chill and calm to the utmost right from the get-go, considering what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. She did all the no-nos. First of all, not pulling over when he activated his emergency equipment, not stopping, secondly. Third, not only going to her house, but pulling into an enclosed garage. And 4, jumping out of the car. 5, at one point, just deciding to go in the house.
Ma'am, do not go inside.
Oh my God.
Ma'am, come outside. You can't just go inside. This is a traffic stop.
Yeah, that was the bad.
That doesn't happen.
That was like a Saturday Night Live scare. I'm like, did she just go in the house like to make a sandwich?
She just went in the house.
Right. I thought she was like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something.
It was like Bizarro World, man. It was literally Bizarro World. Listen, full disclosure, you and I both know Sandra. We worked cases with Sandra.
Yes.
We said, what did we say, David, when we started this podcast? Finally, common sense has arrived. There was no common sense in this entire incident. There was no common sense, not one zero shred of common sense that Sandra displayed. Unfortunately, I'm not throwing cheap shots at her, but this was totally wrong. She was way out of bounds. And I mean, she goes in the house, then she comes back out, and then she calls the kid an asshole.
Just don't understand the hostility towards me. I'm doing my job.
No, you're being an asshole.
How am I being an asshole?
And I say kid because we could call our brother and sister officers kids because we're so old and seasoned. And it's a term of endearment. It's not a sign of disrespect. We say kids, this officer. But she literally calls this officer who was being overly polite to her. And I tell you what, I guarantee you the way he was talking, he didn't know who she was.
He had no idea. The point where I think he says, you're a DA, or I'm paraphrasing, but he says like, you're a DA, you should know, when the lights are on to pull over.
Yeah.
And she clarifies it and says, I'm not a DA, I'm the DA.
You say you're a DA?
I am the DA.
Okay.
Okay, let me get you my badge. I am the DA.
He had no clue. I don't think he had any clue. In my opinion,
and then she makes the statement of, well, you see it's a black or a black truck, and then you should have ran the plate and then realized who it was. And I mean, her story was all over the place, number one. And then number two, when she goes into the garage and she gets out of the truck and was totally demeaning to this kid. And I'll tell you what, and you and I and Jason, years ago when they talked about body-worn cameras, right? All of us proactive street cops were saying no body-worns, no body-worns, no body. We were like, no.
Yeah,
we all thought they were taboo. We didn't like them. We hated them. I'm going to tell you right now, David, these body-worn cameras are saving careers and livelihoods of our brother and sister officers.
Just like I brought up in the past when we've mentioned the body-worn cameras, it's the same way when they brought up doing the videos in the interview room. A lot of the old-timers would be like, videos in the interview, the same feelings we had about the body-worn cameras, they had about having videos in the interview room. Videos in the interview room are the greatest thing ever, too. Like, there's no issue with it. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's right there. It's hard to, overcome a confession when it's on video. So it is saving people's careers much more than hurting them.
And just like the interview room cameras and just like the body worn, you could literally see in real time or like a TV show, basically a taped TV show, what the hell happened. This is exactly what happened. I mean, when you and I came on many, many moons ago, there was no way that there was anything remotely body-worn cameras. You never thought of that. I mean, the Rodney King incident was a camcorder over someone's shoulder with a long cord. Right. When that happened, and then everything. Now we morphed into wearing a camera on the chest. I mean, this is like futuristic stuff. But thank God for the officer, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, and I should probably pronounce it correctly since I am a Paisan, but I think it's Crisafulli. And man, Officer Crisafulli, you have our utmost respect because you not only represented your police department, your family, your brother and sister officers locally and throughout the United States of America. I mean, you just represented us phenomenally. You were the quintessential professional. You did it the way you should have done it. We applaud you. And there is not a manual or a script that could have been written the way this gentleman, this officer handled a high-profile publicly elected official. Let's face it. She is a district attorney. She is the highest law enforcement person in Monroe County. David and I know you talked about it last night. We're not talking feds, anything like that, but relative to the county, she is it. She is the highest law enforcement official above the sheriff, above the police chief, above everybody. And this is how she acts. It's unbelievably
she's pretty high up.
Disgusting.
She's pretty high up the food chain.
You don't get any higher.
Not that
you don't
I've
get
seen
any higher. And then, and then she's like, yeah, like you said, she said she's going to prosecute it, whatever. I don't know. She's making all these comments, sometimes directly and indirectly, like, yeah, just talking down to this officer. And what ends up happening is he's got to do the right thing. He calls his bosses. She arrogantly calls his police chief on the phone in the beginning of the video and hands it to him. And he's like, yeah, chief, I pulled her over 55 into 35. She refused to comply. He gets the whole story. The officer literally tells a story about 3 times. And then she admits everything on the body worn. It's amazing, though, that she would act like this because I know that she has prosecuted cases, a lot of high-profile media cases, utilizing at some point of the investigation BWC's body-worn cameras.
Well, that's what I just don't understand. Like, as soon as it's going down, it's all on tape. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, it's right on his chest. Yeah. It's huge. Like, that befuddled me how she missed that. But one thing I wanted to hit on is I've been reading some of the comments online, and just so our listeners know. And Johnny, you could, add to this, but cops pull over cars all day long. And yeah, everyone's gotten speedy tickets, everyone's gotten tickets, but there's also a ton of people that I and other officers and you have pulled over that people comply with the lights and siren. We approach the car, they're cordial. Yeah, I didn't signal. Yeah, I was speed, whatever it might be. And we use discretion to let them go, whether they're the DA, whether they're a cop, a fireman, or Joe Blow going to Kodak, or some single mom trying to pick up her kid. We use discretion at all times to let people go when they follow the rules of the land to pull over and, show some respect to the officer and go along with the program. There's been tons of times we've let people go. And, we all tell our families the same thing, pull over immediately, get off the road so the cop has room, put all your windows down in your car, turn your dome light on, put your hands on the steering wheel, all of that we tell them. I guarantee if we back this up and we had a do-over and Miss Doorley pulled over, that kid would not have written her a ticket, used his discretion, he would have gave her a verbal warning, and she would have went home. 100%. So when she decided not to pull over, that kid's hands was forced. There's no way he couldn't not write her when she took off and when she went home. So I see a lot of people online like, oh, everyone else gets tickets. If she would have pulled over, she would still got a ticket. I'm just saying, discretion gets used all the time, and once she decided not to stop, that pretty much sealed the fate that she was going to get a ticket, and this was escalated to a much higher level.
I don't think some of our listeners understand the discretion of the UTTs or traffic law, vehicle and traffic law. You do have discretion. The officer does have. Matter of fact, Officer Christopher Fuley said that in the video you hear on his BWC, he was telling his boss, hey, I have discretion. I think I'm just going to write her the speeding ticket, because in one other part of the video, he talks about by her not complying to his emergency lights, he has the ability to make a physical arrest on her. Yeah. He says in the body worn that this is an arrestable offense because she failed to comply. She drove off.
He could have put her in handcuffs just to sit her in the car. Like you and I mean, there's plenty of times people haven't complied. We're like, come here. If you're not going to sit still and you're not going to go along with the program, you can sit in the back of my car. And if you go in the back of my car, you're in bracelets. That's how it works.
Correct.
So he used discretion and gave her a long leash just by letting her walk around.
Yeah, he did. Here's what the other issue is, right, David? We got copycats, right? Now, what I hope doesn't happen, and this is one of the main reasons why we're doing this podcast. We're not doing it for clicks, but she literally now is the highest ranking law enforcement official. She failed to comply with the officer's emergency equipment and his verbal commands in anything he was saying, verbally abuses him, and then just goes in her house and walks in, walks out, and just continues to do. So now what do you think Jim Smith or Nancy Smith is going to do now when they get pulled over? And then they're going to say, well, Sandra Doorley did it. I saw the video. Well, why can't I do it?
Right. Give me the ticket. Give me the ticket. You can't do anything else to me. Just give me the ticket. You didn't do anything to Sandra. That's basically what it's going to be. And we can quantify this by saying, again, let's be honest, Sandra's done a lot of great things, and she has prosecuted, the baddest of the bad, and she's run a great office. We're talking about this specific incident and this specific day, and we're priding ourselves on shooting it down the middle, and we have to show some, ability to play both sides, and see things from, not just the police side and just always side with law enforcement. We have to show that we have the ability to, see both sides. And that's what we're doing here. This isn't a bash the career of Sandra Doorley. This is talking about this once incident. And in this once incident, she did everything wrong.
You literally took the words out of my mouth, because this incident does not define her career. Now, Sandra and I have had ups and downs, and she and I know what those are, and I'm not going to get into them.
Me too.
But at the end of the day, this does not define the woman's career in its entirety. And I'm not saying that to defend her. I'm just saying shoot it down the middle, like we talked about. And she has done a lot of great work. She has put a lot of bad people behind bars, and she's done a lot of high-profile media cases. She has prosecuted, I think, the last 2-3 murders of our brother officers. She's had a fantastic, what I would like to call a Hall of Fame public servant career relative to the district attorney's office. To go a step beyond, our podcast, we don't call for no one's jobs. We're not petty like that. We're not saying she needs to resign. She is an elected official. People elected her in office. Now, I don't know what the rules are relative to lawyers or district attorneys where there may be some higher power or some type of judicial arm that oversees the district attorneys in New York State, and they can say, hey, and put her on the bench or suspend her temporarily. I don't know that, and I'm not going to pretend to know that. However, this was a topic that we felt we needed to discuss, we needed to address. And we are not saying, hey, she needs to resign, she needs to quit, she needs to get fired, and blah, blah, blah. That's all BS, right? Because she's an elected official. But anyways, David, any last closing thoughts, brother?
No. I'm glad we fired this up, though.
Shout out to the Webster Police Department. Shout out to the chief. He's got a hell of a staff over there. Professionals. Even the supervisors that responded, you could hear a little bit of the dialogue in the garage. They were professional.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you right now, these officers that were involved in this incident, I could tell the character that they had by watching the body-worn camera, that they would have acted like this even without the BWCs, even without the body-worn cameras on. And I just want to say hats off to you, my brothers and sisters. You guys represented our law enforcement community well. You were disrespected to the point where you showed great restraint, and that should be applauded. Folks, you're listening to the Crime Dawg Podcast. We hope that you subscribe to our YouTube page, which is the Crime Dawg Podcast. DAWG is how you spell it. Tune in for future episodes. But like my brother-in-law, Frankie Grassi, says, if you can't make it, who cares?